Etapu, Namaste, Haru Nefer, Anecharak. This is Kasank Ma Keparu with another video for you. And in this video, we're going to talk about secret manipulation techniques of the ruling elite. But before I do that, I want you to hit the like button on this video. Hit that like button. This is your first time to my channel. Welcome. Hit the subscribe button to get notifications on when I go live or when I upload recorded videos. Also, if you're looking to expand your knowledge on the esoteric and the occult, we do have free ebooks for you. Click on the links below. You can download those free ebooks and start reading more and take your spiritual journey to the next level. If you're really interested in going all the way down the rabbit hole and seeing what the Matrix is really about, be a supporter of ours on Patreon. As a supporter, you'll get exclusive access to instructional videos on the esoteric, how to meditate, videos on self-hypnosis to rid yourself of stress, anxiety, how to communicate with the ancestors, how to astro project, and so much more. You can be a supporter of ours on Patreon for as little as $1, $5, $20 a month. It is up to you. If you become an Osera level Patreon supporter, you'll get all your oracle readings for free. It's covered in that. And you can cancel at any time. So think about becoming a Patreon supporter. Last but not least, YouTube is shadow banning some channels that are talking about COVID-19. So please share this video with family and friends so we can get the revolution started. All right. So Haru Nefer, how are you? I want to talk about a very important subject, which kind of came to mind the other day when I was talking with this young woman and we were going back and forth over the topic of non-traditional families. And finally, at the end of the conversation, I basically just said, listen, you're very uneducated, you're very ignorant. There's no point in me discussing this because you're not willing to educate yourself. And I said, you know what, this would be a great case study to do a video on. So I said, I'm going to do a video because I think a lot of people are they're not in the know on just how clever the ruling elite are and what their plans are. Consequently, because we're not educated about this, we play along. And many of us are willing participants in our own demise. Let me say that again. Many of us are willing participants in our own demise. Some of us are fully aware of it, and some of us aren't. But the ignorance is no excuse, because we're at a point in time where information is abundant. You can go and Google anything. You can talk to other people. Generation Z, Generation X, there's a lot of people who are in contact with a lot of information. So if you're coming along and you're talking about ignorance, like I didn't know, well, it is your job at this point to know. Too many people are falling victim to the COVID-19 scam because they just believe what the government tells them. You see, the government has already proven through the Tuskegee experiments, through numerous false flag operations, that they lie. They lie like a rug, but you still believe them every time they come out and tell you something. So, well, now it's your fault. Now this is about you now. It's about looking in the mirror and saying, what is going on within me that I'm unwilling to do the necessary research, that I'm unwilling to expand my consciousness, to look further than just what I see before you. Let me explain something, my beloved. We are socially engineered to be dumbasses. And I'm going to say it, I'm not going to like hold words. We are socially engineered to be dumbasses. And it's about time that you wake the hell up. My mother, we were raised in Virginia, and we were raised on a corn farm, and we love corn. We would have corn all the time. And there's many ways to cook corn, by the way. And I remember me and my brother we lived very modestly. I mean, we had like an outhouse, and we would go out in the mornings to the cornfields, and we would look at the insects all over the corn, and we would catalog and like say, what kind of insect is this, you know? Well, something happened during that great time that me and my brother were having. My mother got an idea. Ooh, that was dangerous. She said, we can do better. I want our family to move to New York. We're no longer going to be on a corn farm living in a small, what was it called, like a trailer at the time, with an outhouse. She said, we can do better. And my father agreed. So he moved us to Manhattan. And I remember walking in the street and looking up at the tall buildings. I never saw such tall buildings in my life. And from there, the quality of our lives improved. So don't give me an excuse as to why you're not educated on what the ruling elite is doing. Because everyone has within them the ability to intuit truth, to intuit wisdom and knowledge. That is what the faculty of Tahuti, that's why Tahuti is within you. And these ideas do come to you because we all live in a type of a fishbowl. If the water is polluted, we all get sick. So information is in there in the air. That's the other internet, the ether. It's in the air. And this information is traveling and we are receptors and we're picking this information up. But you guys are too damn foolish to realize the ideas that you have, you need to act upon it. Excuse me. Let me get into this so you clearly understand the predicament we're in. You have to understand your enemy. Sun Tzu talks about that in The Art of War. And you don't understand your enemy, which is why your enemy gets over on you. You see, the enemy's greatest feat is making you think that they are clever, they're intelligent, and they know all. The secret is they don't know jack. But they fool you into thinking that they are the epitome of intelligence, the epitome of knowledge. You see, the world we live in is governed by Sebek Tem. Sebek is left brain intellect. It thinks, I think, therefore I am. And it's this thinking that gets Sebek into trouble. Because our beloved, our ancestors, we were on the level of Tahuti, wisdom. Because when you get into wisdom, then you begin to understanding the higher forces and what governs the universe, what the structure of the universe and the different levels of the matrix, and you really start to see the substructure of how everything is built on a subatomic level and on a macro level. We lack ma'at in our world, truth, justice, righteousness, but more important, balance. You see, the ruling elite target people of color on a global level for a particular reason. I'm not talking about just African Americans or Africans. I'm talking about globally, people of melanin content. The ruling elite targets them specifically because they are the ones that built the great civilizations of yesteryear based on what? Right brain, integrated brain thinking. See, at one point, the world was ruled by men and women who were whole brain thinkers, which is why you look back in their cultures and you say, it can only be geniuses who built this. Yes, we were geniuses. We were gods. Because we understood that you must use the left and the right hemisphere of the brain. You must, at some point, merge the two, Sebek and Ma'at, the small picture with the big picture. Ma'at is the big picture. Here comes the ruling elite, masters of the occult and dark magic, who sets their sight on conquering the world. So the first thing that they did is they said, and there were a small group only, a very small group, we must burn every library of occult wisdom in existence. One of the first to go was the Library of Alexandria. They burned the papyrus down. They burned the library down. They took Hypatia, the chief librarian. They stripped the flesh off her naked body to symbolize how they hated the female principle. Because what is the female principle? The female principle is the moon. What is the moon? The right brain. Learn to look at symbolism. The ruling elite does. Why do you think they hate women? Because women are the symbol of right brain thinking. Why do you think they hate people of melanin content? Because people of melanin content are right brain thinkers. And the ruling elite are left brain thinkers. So they keep us trapped in concrete thinking. Left brain only thinks concrete, it does not think abstractly. The next thing they did was at the Conference of Nicaea was to remove Mary from her position. We're not going to bow down to the moon or a woman or the left or right brain thinking. So they said the sun, which is a symbol of the right brain, the sun or the Son of God is what we're going to worship, a male. And we're going to concoct religions as a means to manipulate and control the minds of the planet, the population of the planet. And what we will do with those religions is trap them in left brain thinking. We will use those books as history books so that you will not understand the occult significance of the metaphors within the book. They will not understand, the masses of the people on the planet will not understand the hidden science of these books based on astrophilosophy and astrotheology, a lost science. We will keep that knowledge from them by having them look at the biblical figures as concrete, real, historical accounts of figures. And the dummies will go along with it. But that's not all. That was just the minor things that they did to take over the planet and manipulate the masses. You see, they took it to the next level because they knew that the people that stood in their way from the conquest of the planet and from realizing their goal, you see, when you're dealing with dark magic and you're dealing with black magicians, they can project their consciousness into the future. So they scanned future events and they determined a future timeline that they wanted to be on. And they said, in order for us to get to that future, we're going to have to subjugate all people of color on the planet. And their plan has been unfolding ever since in the right direction toward that future dystopia. But here's where it gets sinister. And my brother George Lucas, who, if you ask him, he'll say, who, me? I don't know anything about the ruling elite. I don't know anything about the Illuminati. He knows because he encrypted the wisdom within his movies to tell us. The next phase of the operation was to control the planet, was to create an ergobore, a pendulum, a virus, a thought entity called racism that would spread across the planet and therefore subjugate the masses of people of color of right brain thinking. Hello, we talking high occult wisdom here. You want stupid knowledge? You want stupid is as stupid does? Go listen to those other YouTubers who don't know a damn thing. They don't know jack shit. And they're trying to teach you comedic science, comedic wisdom, and they don't know anything. They can't tell you what astrotheology is. They don't know the hidden wisdom and gems that were left for us in the Bible. All they can tell you is about white supremacy, white supremacy. But I digress. So they created in their rituals, in their dark magic, these thought viruses that would infect the masses of people on the planet and then give them a perspective of how anything of color is inferior and anything white is superior. And thus, the planet was set on a course to darkness because we moved from integrated brain thinking to left concrete brain thinking, and the planet was enveloped in ignorance. People's intelligence levels dropped, it plummeted. But they got smarter. In addition to creating these entities that still exist and are very powerful And if you ever try to combat them, they will kill you. These thought viruses, these pendulums, these ergobores, because their only desire is to spread racism, death, and destruction for people of color. You cannot see it. You cannot feel it. You cannot smell it. But it's there. It's an entity. It's there. This is why the ancient Kemetic priests, when they wanted to deal with something that was causing a problem in the ancient world, they got together the masses of people in the nation and they did large rituals that would transfer the high priests and priestesses' consciousness into the ether where they could do battle with the entity and to disperse the power of that entity, because that entity is empowered through energy. An energy that it sucks and feeds from the people. If you want to get rid of this thing called racism now, you've got to go into the deep recesses of the subconscious world, because that is where that entity exists. You're not going to do that by commercials saying, let's have tolerance, let's treat everybody with respect and love. The entity is too powerful. It is of occult nature, and it's not going to go without a fight. You're not going to get rid of it by verbal communication, by verbal soundbite. Duh. It was created by dark magicians, masters of the occult. You are not going to get rid of it that easy. And the ruling elite knows that. Which is why they deflect your attention away from it. They don't want you to know about ergobores or pendulums or thought viruses. They don't want you to believe that those things exist. Which is why they've trapped us into concrete thinking. Which is why they don't want us to believe in voodoo, Santeria, Ifa, Yoruba. They don't want us practicing the oracles. They don't want us doing all of this stuff. So they've taken things further. Because as above, so below. They knew that the entity, the ergomore, was not enough. So during slavery, because they enacted a global system of enslaving people of color. Now, let us not forget, they infected the minds of people to such a degree that even so-called Christians went on a crusade, a blood crusade of murder and mayhem, of conquest in the name of Christ, murdering peaceful indigenous people, enslaving people, indigenous people. So when they enacted slavery, there were white slaves, and this was a caste system. These white slaves were enslaved, paying off debts, and they were seen as less than human. Many Irish people can attest to the fact that they were despised just as much as blacks. So you had white and black people enslaved, working out on the fields. And then began the uprisings, where the whites and the black slaves worked together to try and bring an end to slavery. But then the ruling elite said, okay, we can't have this happen. We can't have white people and black people working together in unison. We cannot have this. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to enact our left brain Sebek ingenious, because Sebek's ingenious mind. And what we're going to do is we're going to give them a little bit more privileges to the white people. And when they get that little privileges, they're going to think they're better than the black people. And therefore, they won't work together. And it worked beautifully. So the white people said, well, I'm getting privileges. I don't need to rebel. I'm okay. Black man, Black woman, Native American man, Native American woman, Mexican man, Mexican woman. I'm okay. They're giving me privileges. So why should we rebel? This is called divide and conquer. And this is the plan they enacted. Go back and research Bacon's Rebellion. You'll see it all there. So then they took this to the next level. And they said, the ruling elite, well, we know where we want to take the planet to. We want to get the planet to a point of where the people will willfully accept their own enslavement, willfully imprison themselves, willfully go according to our plan. So there will be no need for a military imposing rules upon the people. The people will impose the rules upon themselves. Look at this study. They had a dog in a cage, and they would feed that dog day in and day out. And the dog would eat the meal, and then one day they removed the cage. And they noticed something very strange. Although the cage was removed, the dog never ventured outside the parameters of where the cage used to be. The dog had created its own imprisonment, its own prison, its own mind concocted parameters where there were none. That's what they're trying to get to, a point of where you're so brainwashed and so damaged that you will willingly go along with your own imprisonment and enslavement. Hetepu has, that's right, the sheeple, the sheeple. Now, cut to my conversation with the idiots on social media. The dumbed down, because we are dumbed down. We're not operating at where, you see, all of us were meant to be geniuses. We were. But because of social engineering and because of years of oppression, we have gotten to the point of where our third eye is almost to the point of dead, damaged, of where our connection to Jehuti, the Akashic records, is severed. So we can't think our way out of this. We're lost. And the evil geniuses, the ruling elite, they don't have to come up with any sophisticated plans. They don't have to hide their plans. We are so at the level of deaf, dumb, and stupid, they can throw the plan right in front of us and sit back and laugh. It's called, any of my magi's know what this is called? When they throw the plan out there and they tell you what they're going to do and then they do it, do you know what it's called? There's a name for it. Come on, magi's, anybody out there? It is called predictive programming, my beloved. Predictive programming. They throw it out in the media. They throw it out in the TV shows. They tell you what they're going to do on The Simpsons. They tell you what they're going to do on all your favorite TV shows. And then they do it. And then you stupid think, wow, that's really a coincidence. Wow, gee, what a coincidence. Life is so full of coincidences. No, you dumbass. They're telling you what they're doing. They're telling you what they're going to do before they do it. They told you what they were going to do with 9/11. There was a movie made prior to 9/11. It's so laughable. It was a movie made prior to 9/11 where they crashed planes into the World Trade Center and brought the World Trade Center down. And nobody went back and talked about this. Hey guys, did you know a year prior to 9/11, there was a movie made about planes crashing into the World Trade Center and bringing down the buildings? Did you guys see that movie? Yeah, what a coincidence. You see the way they work their plan now. This is the way they work their plan now. We're going to take African Americans or ADOS or Foundational Black Americans, however you want to call them, as the case study. Let's take them as the case study. It is the same plan with a different name, divide and conquer, whatever you want to call it. What they do is they pit one group against another group. And then by doing so, that ensures them that the masses will never collectively work together to rise above their circumstances. Well, how do they do this, right? Well, it's very easy. They look at African Americans. And African Americans say, we want reparations for slavery. We were done wrong. And you know, of course, you can't give reparations to them because you don't want the very people who created an almost advanced utopian society in antiquity. You don't want to give them a means to do that again. So you needed to deprive them of that ability to go back and deprive them of the ability to go back and build pyramids again. Deprive them of the ability to teach the world integrated brain thinking. Deprive them of the ability to teach the world occult sciences on a high level. Tohad, thank you, Dwa, for the donation. Much appreciated. So what do you do? How do you deprive these individuals who are screaming reparations? Well, it's easy. You take resources that were meant for them and you give it to another special interest group. I don't know. What special interest group could we give it to? Let's give it to the LGBTQ. Yes, let's give it to them. Okay. And then when you have African Americans saying, well, listen, hey, every time we talk about reparations, you promote the LGBTQ agenda. You can't do that because we're due reparations. Oh, you hate gays. You're homophobic. Look at you. Do you see the plan? When African Americans say, hey, you know what? We need a system, something that ensures that we get fair employment in corporate America. You know, we want equal rights. So then when the government comes along, like the EEOC, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, and says, listen, you've got to make sure you're hiring a certain amount of Black, Latino people, Mexican people to be fair. Then white people go, oh, no, you want privilege. You're asking for privilege. No, we're not asking for privilege. We're asking for you to address a wrong. So what the ruling elite does is they fund special interest groups. They are the ones that created the alphabet community. No disrespect intended. They are the ones that funded feminism. They were the ones that funded the white supremacist movement in this country. Because to keep a people down, you've got to create infighting, create division, create factions within factions within factions. That's how Sebeck thinks. Sebeck's labels, defines, and separates. That's Sebeck's forte. Do you understand that? So that when you, case in point, have white men come along and say, hey, wait a minute, now you're giving white women all of these opportunities that they don't deserve. You hate feminists. You hate women. You are evil patriarch. And based on this name calling, this vilifying, they then marginalize you and put your genuine need and cry for help on the peripheral. Now, if you are wondering why I'm caping for white men, then you are missing the damn point. And I am caping for white men. You have a society now that is giving white women unjust privileges. And it's vilifying white men. And white men have a legitimate grievance. But when they stand up, they're called racist, you see? Because the ruling elite know they have to create infighting between white men and white women. And what better way to do that is to take the privileges from the white men and give it to the white women. And the white women are not going to, in any way, shape, or form, give up those privileges. When I was speaking with this woman, and they were showing how this gay couple were adopting kids, and I want you to understand this very clearly. Listen to what I'm saying. Listen, use your damn brain. When they had this commercial for this gay couple adopting kids, and they were putting it out there, and I explained to the woman, that's not right. That is wrong. Oh, you're homophobic. You're a hater. I said, I'm not homophobic. I'm not hating anybody. I want you to understand something clearly, as I told her and I explained to her. The cabal, those in power, the 1%, don't give a fuck about the LGBTQ community. I'm going to say it again. They don't give a fuck about the LGBTQ community. They just using them as pawns on the chessboard. You see, when African Americans say, hey, this COVID-19 is affecting us disproportionately. We're the ones dying the most from this. We need some help. No, shut up. Hey, take a look at this gay couple over here. La, 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 la. Let's get, hey, let's this gay commercial, la, la, la. Wait, hold on. We're not talking about us who went through slavery. You're homophobes. You're homophobes. It's a distraction. So when I'm talking to the woman, I said, hey, listen, I got nothing wrong. I have no problem with the gay and lesbian community. But I just want you to understand how the game is played. The louder African Americans cry for reparations and that their grievances be heard before the world court or before our government, the more the propaganda is put out there and the more they fund other special interest groups to divert your attention away from the reparations argument. And then they call you names to scare you, and they enact hatred and terror. See, the very people who are saying that you're a hater, you're a homophobe, are the ones that are out there promoting the hate themselves. And they're just stupid to realize what they're doing. Let me tell you something. My brother was a big activist in the LGBTQ community, if I get to say that right. I remember one day him coming to me and saying something that was very, very prolific. This is years ago. This is right when AIDS was becoming a big thing, HIV. He told me, he says, Kasank, you know that as far as HIV is concerned, the dominant society has not educated, put out any information to people of color in the South Bronx to Harlem to let us know how it can be spread, let us know what precautions to take. He said, they don't care about us. And I looked at him and I said, wow, I didn't know that. I thought at that time that they see all people under that umbrella. But I didn't realize how sophisticated their plan was, how they take resources from one and give it to the other so that they can have the two fighting off of one another. And if you notice, the louder African Americans cry for reparations or justice or equal rights, the more other groups, such as white women, will be put to the forefront and given more attention, because that's part of the plan. That's part of the plan. And it's very devious. I want you to understand this. When white women are given privileges that they don't deserve, and white men cry foul, they make white men look wrong. And these white women, knowing that they're not deserving of those privileges, they're not deserving of those positions that they're getting, that they have lied about being harassed, they have lied about the rape allegations, not all. They don't care because they're getting funded. They're getting privileges. They're never going to give up that position of privilege. And the ruling elite knows that. So they play the same game with African American women. They come along and say, we're going to hire you more in corporate America. We're going to give you more positions and more pay. When the police come around, we'll give you a warning. But if a black man does one little thing, we'll shoot him. And do black women do anything? No, they're getting positions of privilege. Why would they do anything? It takes a special type of person, a group of people, to be given wealth, power, and influence and willingly give it up for truth, for righteousness. What I am saying to you is that the way that these people have been in the position of power, and the reason that they're still in the positions of power is because they're playing a chess game. And that they're giving your brothers and your sisters undeserved rewards for the sole purpose so that you too will not work together to overthrow the 1%, the cabal. And what you're going to have to do, for those of you who are in influential positions and are given a voice, who are given funding, who are given positions of power, you're going to have to use that and say, no, I don't want this. I'm going to work with my people. I'm not going to take this exclusive privilege that you're giving me just so you can pit me against everyone else and to play your sinister game. Am I making sense? Do you people hear me? Am I making sense? White women are going to have to say, I'm sorry. We're not going to play this game. We're not interested in this. We're not going to be fighting against white men. And black women are going to have to say the same thing. I'm sorry, I'm not going to take your position of power and influence because we're going to work with our black men to get us out of oppression. And the gay and lesbian movement is going to have to say, no, we're not going to play that game. We're going to work with straight people. We're going to come together with them and we're going to work for the betterment of all. You're not going to drown out our voices, any of our voices. We're not going to fall victim to your diversionary tactics of funding special interest groups that pop out of nowhere. And as Rod just said, And you're absolutely 100% correct. It's not that they're not going to do it. They haven't done it. They already have been given the position of influence and power, and they have demonstrated very clearly that they are out for themselves. Such is the case when I spoke to the woman, and I said to the woman, I said, listen, you know what, that commercial about the, you know, promoting the gays and their rights and having them adopt kids, they're doing that as a diversionary tactic. But all she could do is call me homophobic, because her mind doesn't know how to think critically, hierarchically, holistically. She doesn't know how to think. She's stupid. I said nothing of hate about anybody. All I've said was, can we take a step back and look at the bigger picture of what the hell's going on here? Not only does it take someone of strong moral fiber to turn down the wealth, the power, and influence that the ruling elite bestows upon them, but it also takes a special person to see the trickery, to see what they're doing. Not everybody can see this. Do you understand? Let me end with this. I met with this young, beautiful woman, an African-American woman, who is head of an HR department. And they took me around a tour of the company, and I sat down with her. And I said, wow, it looks like the HR department is full of African-American women. That's really great. She goes, yeah. I said, but, you know, if you don't mind me saying, but when I look at the employees in the company, they're 99% white males. That doesn't make sense. She goes, and this is what she said, what do you mean? I'm like, what do I mean? I think it's evident. You're an African-American woman in an HR department that's responsible for hiring and monitoring any type of like racial discrimination. And your department is full of African-American females, which is a very small department, HR department. And nowadays they don't call them HR departments anymore. They have all kinds of creative names for them, but that's besides the point. So I said, the company is full of 99% white males. Your HR department is not reflective of the company itself. The company itself is not reflective of America. And she was baffled as to what I was getting at. And I let it drop. I left it alone. I left it alone. You either get it or you don't get it. You either get it or you don't get it. I ain't got time to explain this to people. What did Denzel Washington used to say in that movie? It's a great movie called Philadelphia. Explain it to me like I'm a 7-year-old. Can you? I ain't got time. But you see, what they're going to do is they're going to use your arguments and throw it back at you and say that you're hating on a group. You hate white women, you hate males, you hate gay people, you hate transgender. They have to do that because they have to create the divide and conquer scenario. They have to create factions within factions within factions, split hairs, and sit back and watch them all fight each other for resources. That's how it works. Let them all fight each other for resources. If we were a society that has been educated and that valued education, I mean real education, we would see this. We would see through all of this. And as I said before, many people do. Many people do. Many feminist groups see through this, but they don't give a damn because they're getting money. They're getting power. They're getting positions. Many Black women see this. They don't care. They're getting positions. They're getting power. Many gay organizations see this. They don't care. They're getting funding. I just want to ask this question. Why is it we use titles, names, and definitions as a means to separate us? I spoke to someone and I said this. The worst thing that Western religion brought to us was the identification of the person. It made us believe we are the physical body. We are consciousness. We are not a gender. We are not a race. We are not a political affiliation. We are not an ideology. We are consciousness. We transcend all of that. And we all share the one consciousness. Clifton's consciousness is my consciousness. Ra consciousness is my consciousness. Do you understand? Hess's consciousness is my consciousness. Ank's consciousness is my consciousness. Akim's consciousness is my consciousness. Susan's consciousness is my consciousness. There's no difference. It's all one. God's consciousness is my consciousness. And my consciousness is God's consciousness. There's no separation. The separation is an illusion. And beyond the consciousness, what does exist? Mat, love. Love for all, no matter what. God's love does not have a criteria to it. God's love doesn't say, you must be straight for me to love you. No. God says, I love you no matter what. You can curse me. You can ignore me. God says, I still love you. And that love is eternal. There is no prerequisite to God's love. None whatsoever. Only thing God is asking from you is one thing. One thing. What is that? Does anybody know what that one thing God is asking? Can someone tell me that one thing that God asks of us? God said, allow me to place my consciousness within your body so that I may experience life. Let me say that again because it's beautiful. God says, allow me to place my consciousness within you, your physical body, so that I may experience life, this fourth dimensional world. See, God cannot manifest in this fourth dimensional world in the way we think of. So God needs you as the vehicle so God can experience life. So God can experience what it's like to be straight. So God can experience what it's like to be gay. So God can experience what it's like to be a white male or a white female or a black male or a Latino male or a Latina. God wants to experience all of that. And in order to do that, God needs you. And that's all God asks from you. Allow me to experience me through you. This is Gasak Ma Keperu. Thanking all of you for tuning in today. Son of Maat and Tahuti. Maat is a beautiful goddess Heteru. Until my next video, I'll see you around.